is Swami Vivekananda. And Swamiji used to repeat again and again that he only preached the Upanishads. If you look at my writings and what I taught, what I preached, you will find that I have only preached the Upanishads. Now, I want to give a brief picture of the uniqueness, the unique place of Upanishads in Hindu, Vedantic, canonical tradition. If you look at the antiquity and the continuity of our tradition, you find it all began with Veda Samhita. Veda Samhita is supposed to be the oldest available document on spirituality and philosophy known to mankind. And you find that the early commentaries on the Veda Samhita were very, very lopsided and very partial. The first Vaidika Nikhandu that goes back to 9th century BC was again revived through a commentary by Yaska in his book called Yaska's Niruttam. And then came Skanda Swami's commentary. Philosophy, Vedic tradition goes to Shankaracharya in the 8th century AD. Now, it was Shankaracharya who for the first time interpreted Vedic mantras in the language of philosophy and spirituality. I shall make this further clear. So, in fact, the early interpretations of Vedic literature, either Vaidika Nikhandu in its full form, it is not available, some portions available, and Yaska's Nirutta. What is Deva Shabda? Deva Kasma. This is how Nirutta goes about language. So if you look at the language of Nirutta, Vaidika Nikhandu, you find they were using a language that was pre-Paninian. Panini standardized and he actually formalized the use of Sanskrit language in around maybe 5th century BC. And the pre-Shankarite commentators on Vedic literature were mostly focusing on some of the Vaidika mantras and suttas. Remember, Rigveda Samhita is the mother of Vedic literature. Many of the great Upanishad mantras found in Atharvavediya Upanishad are found in Rigveda Samhita mantra. Dwa Sapurna Savija Sakhaya Samanam Vriksham Parishasajati. Swamiji quotes that. It's actually the Rigveda Samhita mantra. So what the early commentators did was, they tried to give a kind of interpretation according to the culture of what now we call Vaidika Vyakarana, the Vedic grammatical system, which is pre-Paninian. And according to the early Vedic grammatical system, they have a big motto, a doctrine, that is Sarvesham Shabdanam Dhadujatvam Dhatunam Anegarthatvam. It means language is very irregular. Every word comes from a dhatu, a root, and dhatu can have any number of meanings. So all these attempts to interpret Vaidika mantras happen to be somewhat lopsided. And then came Shankaracharya in the 8th century. So what he did, according to many scholars, the concept of Prasthanatraya, the triple foundations of Vedanta philosophy, the result is his contribution. Because altogether you find there were about 108 well-defined Upanishads. Today you find Gita Press Gorakhpur has brought out books about 180 Upanishads. And some of the Upanishads are of later origin. They are not necessarily authentic, either according to in traditional Indian scholarship or even Western Oriental scholarship. So, and another very, very important thing I want to point out when it comes to Upanishads, this is very important. You find Swami Vivekananda in his Colombo to Almora lectures, he tries to explain some of the problems of Hindu society or Indian society. For example, in spite of this great spiritual ideal of universalism and unity, there is so much of social injustice, disparity in Indian society. Casteism, untouchability, and this mind-boggling diversity of practices and belief systems. And then Swamiji says, whenever there is a conflict with regard to practices, philosophical doctrines, ideas or conventions, whether you are performing a yaga yajna, whether the habit should be put this way or that way, or whether your calculation of the exact time or the way to perform to prepare the yajna vedi should be this way or that way. Whenever there is a conflict, you have to listen to the words of the Upanishads, Shrutis. Shruti is the word that Swamiji means, but he used the word Upanishads. Now here is a point. 3 Smritikaras, remember, authors of Smritis, themselves declare again and again, if we are in conflict with the teachings of the Upanishads, Shrutis reject us, uphold the Upanishads. Shruti Smriti Virodeshu Shrutireva Gariyasi Avirodetu Sadakaryam Smartam Vaidikavasada. This is Javara Smriti. Whenever there is a contradiction or conflict, it is Shruti. Shruti means Upanishads, not Samhita, Brahmana or Anandika. Because traditional scholars, and there is a reason why I am referring to traditional scholars. Swamiji himself said, when you compare a traditional Indian Pandit who has spent 40 years to study the Vedas, Vyakranam, Mimamsa and Nyaya Shastra, Chaturshastras, when you compare to a Western scholar who has spent 3 months and write 3 books, Swamiji says Western scholarship is important, relevant, but not necessarily authentic. Relevance is this. See, if I write a book called Augustine or Aquinas, because I am a non-baptized, non-Christian, my writing certainly has its relevance, its importance, but it may not have authenticity in the eyes of the Pope or the Roman scholars in Rome or any Catholic church. Similarly, Western scholars have made a tremendous contribution, but if there is a conflict, we should first study the traditional Indian perspective, and then certainly we should respect Western perspective. According to Max Muller, who was trying to give a graphic picture of the evolution of the concept of God in the Upanishads and also in the Samhitas, he mentioned that there are 3, 4, 5 stages in the evolution of the concept of God in the Vedic literature. Pantheism, Pantheism, Polytheism, Monotheism, and Monism. Pantheism is some kind of nature worship, equating the phenomenal empirical world with God. Pantheism believes that there is a divine spirit within every living being in nature. Polytheism implies the different gods and goddesses. Monotheism implies one presiding God, and monism implies Advaita, somewhat in a very, maybe approximately. So this view is important. But the Smritikaras themselves have made it very clear. There is no need of conflict. Again, Vyasa Smriti, which is more authentic according to traditional scholarship. Vyasa says, Sruti Smriti Purananam Virodho Yatra Dusyade Tatra Sraudam Pramanam Sya Toyo Dvaithe Smriti Varya. When there is a conflict between Shrutis, Upanishads, and Smritis, you uphold Shrutis, Upanishads. When there is a conflict between Smritis and Puranas, you uphold the Smritis, and Puranas will go down in the last place. Again, Apastamba says, Shruti, Smriti, Puraneshu, Virodeshu Parasparam, Purvam Purvam Beliyasya, Idi Nyaya Vidovidu. The same idea. Means Shruti has got the highest pramanyam, authenticity. Shruti here means Upanishad, because Shankaracharya defines Shruti. Shruyede Brahmadinam Paramatmanam Labhante iti Veda. This is Shankaracharya's definition. Purvamimamsa Kumar Bhatta, he of course commenting on one of the Jaimini Sutras, he says, he defined what Amanaya. Amanayate Upadishyate Dharma Anena iti Amanaya. So what teaches dharma? That means dharma, artha, kama and moksha. That is Veda. But Shankaracharya says the scripture that teaches about the highest Brahmajnanam, Advaitic knowledge, that is Veda, that is Agnaya, that is Sruti, and that is Upanishads. Now, again coming back to the subject, Advaita doesn't begin with Upanishads. You know, the first statement in the context of Advaita comes in the first mandala of Rigveda Samhita, 164th Sukta. He says, Indram Mitram Varinam Agnirahu Adho Divyasa Suparna Virudman Ekam Sat Vipra Bhagudhavadanti Attinyamam Madhurishwanamahu. This Ekam Sat Vipra Bhagudhavadanti, actually this mantra is commented upon by Skanda Swami. But he says, there is only one Devada for one Yajamana. It is purely an interpretation in the language of this Sapta Havir Yajnas. I mean, there are 14 yagas or yajnas, Sapta Havir Yajnas, where you offer Havis, and Sapta Soma Yajnas, where you offer Soma juice. These are all traditions. So what it means is, in the Rigveda Samhita, there was Advaita. But the problem is, Rigveda Samhita has got a lot of polytheism. Number of Devas and Devatas. Now, how do you reconcile this plurality of gods and goddesses with Advaita? Shankaracharya used an interesting trick. What he did, he organized all these Devas and Devatas from Rigveda Samhita and he reduced them to Panchadevata Puja. So you don't find, for example, temples where sun is worshipped. There are, but not very many, not as many as temples dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu or Devi, etc. So he says, Aditya Vidam Vishnu, Gananatham Maheswaram, Panchayajna Parodityam, Jagasta Panchabhuti. So how to bring this polytheism of Rigveda to monism of Upanishads? So he says, monism or Advaita does not contradict polytheism. You can worship your God every day, you can do Panchadevata Puja. You see, you find some of the most die-hard dialecticians of post-Shankarite period. For example, Sikha Sadhguru Khandana Khandakadya, which is a refutation of the Yaga's criticism of Advaita. He was every day worshipping his deity, and then he was criticizing all Devas and Devatas. So you can see very interesting thing. Which means in real life, in real practice, you can certainly, you should rather do Panchadevata Puja. At the same time, you should remember there is a higher reality beyond all this, that is Advaita Brahman. That is why in many of Shankaracharya's stotras, so Saudari Lahiri, Ananda Lahiri, there are 64 very important stotras, including Sadhushakti Pujara Puja Stotra. We give a list of 64 Upacharas. It begins with Dvaita. It goes through Visishta Advaita. That is the Visishta Aikyam you find in many of the stotras, where Ishvara himself creates this world, Jagat and Jivas evolve out of either Devi, Saudari Lahiri, or Ananda Lahiri, or Shiva Radhakshamana Sutra. Finally, that Shiva presents his experience within our own heart. So, spiritual life, it follows this path of going from Dvaita to Advaita through Visishta Advaita. Again, the same Shankaracharya, I am not going to those details, maybe tomorrow there's a subject. But one of the most unique contributions of Shankaracharya was, he somehow organized and classified 10 Upanishads, Ishakena, Gada, Prasna, Mundaman, Mrugeta, Indriya, Chandogya, Prigaya, etc. Either of course there. Now, the point is, this Prasthanatraya organization, especially the Upanishad, which is very wonderful, very unique point of transition in the evolution of Indian thought. All acharyas are supposed to write commentaries on the Upanishads. Of course, not every acharya has written that. Shankaracharya is the only person who has written and we order the Upanishads plus Gita, that is Sruti Pramana, and Smriti Prasthana, Sruti Prasthana, also Nyaya Prasthana, Brahma Sutras. So the importance of Upanishads is, Upanishads of course explain, describe many things, not only Advaita, also Visishtadvaita. There are very many statements in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the Chandogya Upanishad, which are apparently very Visishtadvaitic. For example, Ye Prithivya Dishta, Prithivya Mandara, Ye Prithivya Vedana, Prithivya Mandaro Yamedi, etc. Esha Yatmandarya, Namuda is Andaryami. That is a very famous, important principle of Visishtadvaita doctrine. Vedanta Desika writes pages after pages on this subject in the Ragasya Trayasara, which is a well-known book by Vedanta Desika, one of the commentators of Ramanuja's classical works. So the point is, in Upanishads you find Advaita, Visishtadvaita, Advaita, but the highest philosophy of Upanishads, in my opinion, is based on Advaita. It doesn't contradict Visishtadvaita. Advaita accommodates within it both Dvaita and Visishtadvaita, not at dialectical level, but a spiritual level. And spiritual level is different from dialectical level. So, one of the most striking examples is Kathopanishad. In the Kathopanishad, there is a story. This little boy, his name is Nachiketa. He goes to his father and asks his question, Kasmai Mam Dasasiti. The father was doing a yajna yaga. I don't want to go into the details. He was playing a trick. He was giving away all useless cows instead of giving wealthy, important, useful things. So Yama teaches this Brahma Vidya. Anoraniya Makudo Makiyan Atmasindo Nikitam Guhayam Tamakadu Pashidi Taswa Dhadu Prasada Makimana Makna. Brahma Vidya is taught. Again you find it at Three Upanishad. Krishna is away. A boy is approaching his father. Atihi Bhagavo Brahmeti. That is, Bhrigu approaches his father Varuna. And there Varuna is teaching Brahma Vidya in a very indirect way. That is, Annam Pranam Chachusotram, etc. Ido Imani Bhutani Jayande, Enajatani Jivandi, Praise, Visham Vishadi, the Vijnasa Swata Brahma. Yataha Imani Bhutani Jayande. From where all these things emerge, where they all exist, and where they get resolved, that is Brahman. So you find this approach. That is, when a student approaches a teacher, in this case his own father, he doesn't just teach us in philosophy, but ask him to start his inquiry, and that inquiry leads him to Brahma Vidya. Maybe the most striking example of one school of post-Advaitic, post-Shankarite school, that is Prasankhya school, is found in the Chandogya Upanishad. See, there are two somewhat contrasting schools of Brahma Vidya, Advaitic experience, generally speaking, in the Upanishad literature. Actually, three. It's all based on some post-Shankarite works on Advaita. The first one was Panchapadya, written by Padmapati. And also Panchapadya Vivarana by Prakasa Medi. According to these two great scholars of Advaita tradition who lived during the post-Shankarite times, if you are fully established in spiritual fitness, sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, nitya nitya vastu viveka ekamutra bhagavad viraga shamadya shakar sampatti mumukshutu, and sravanam mananam and nityasanam. If you are fully established in this, then if you hear Tattvamasi Vadesha Vakya, that is Vadesha Vakya Mahavakyas, immediately you will get spiritual realization. Aham Brahmasmi Anubhuti will dawn in your mind. It is called Sabda Parokshavad. Actually, the genesis of this view is in the Mandukya Upanishad Bhashya, which we actually were discussing already in the commentary of the 7th mantra. That is, if you are fully established in your spiritual fitness, and then if your teacher tells you Tattwamasi instruction, Aham Brahmasmi Anubhuti will become natural to you. You don't have to go through the Anusandhanam, let's say Lakshanavakya, Manana, etc. Like Ayamatma Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma. These two belonging to Ayamatma Brahma from Mandukya Upanishad, Prajnanam Brahma from Aitareya, that is from Rigveda Samkhya, Mandukya from Atharvaveda. So what Upanishads tell you is, if you are fully established in your spiritual fitness, then even an accidental instruction that comes to you will become, you will hear that instruction as experience. There are two examples, one somewhat legend, the other historically you can corroborate. Sri Ramakrishna's own realization. When Dottabari uttered Mahavakya Upadesha, immediately the experience came to Sri Ramakrishna. He went into Samadhi. That is an example of Sabda Parokshama. Another example, according to Govindaraja Shankaracharya Shankaracharya himself, Govinda Bhagavapada taught him, gave him this Brahmajnana. In contrast to this, there are two other views. The second view, chronologically, is called Bhaktika Prasthana. It is Sureshwaracharya. According to him, this happens, but spiritual fitness should be complete. So he goes some other important points, but he generally agrees with the Shabda, Parakshavada, or Padmavada, Prakasarmedi and others, Vidyareddy and others. There is another kind of Advaitic experience mentioned in the Upanishad literature, and that is found in the Chandogya. See, for example, in the Chandogya Upanishad, the 6th chapter, there are 16 khandas. From 9th khanda to 16th khanda, Uddalaka teaches Tattwamasi Mahavakya. First, Upadesha, then 8 repetitions with 8 separate Drishtantas examples. So Nachiketa required 8 repetitions. This is called Prasankhyanavada. When a spiritual aspirant is not fully ready to experience Advaita, then what happens is, he has to slowly listen through Sravanam and Mananam and Vidyasamkhya. He has to do it again and again. It is called Sravanavarti, the word used by Parimalakara, the Advaita Ashrama, that is Kalpaduru Parimala, well-known book belonging to Bhamati Prasthana. Vivarana Prasthana and Bhamati Prasthana, two broad streams of post-Shankaraite schools of Advaita. Both have their justification and their basis in Shankaracharya's own commentaries in the Upanishads. Which here says, when you listen to Mahavakya, Tattwamasi, you may not fully understand it. So that's because you are not fully established in Sravanam and Mananam. This sadhana chatushta sambati will be there, mumukshutvam will be there. That's the most important part of sadhana chatushtaya. But the point is, you should be fully established in Sravanam and Mananam and Vidyasana. If you are not fully established, then you have to practice Dharma Yoga. See, for example, our own Ramakrishna is an example. See, spiritual seekers coming to Ramakrishna, they are all aspirants of Brahmajnana. So gradually, slowly, when we practice Karma Yoga, bhajan, bhakti, devotion practices, what happens is our own level of spiritual fitness increases, and then what we read about, what we discussed, what we learned becomes an experience. So Tattwamasi Mahavakya Upadesha becomes Aham Brahmasmi Anubhuti in course of time. Now, in the Upanishads you find there are so many Vidyas and Upasanas mentioned. Samvarga Vidya, Varuni Vidya, Bhuma Vidya, Satvidya, Tattwamasi Mahavakya. There are innumerable, altogether 33 separate Vidyas. there are actually most important 33 vidyas called upasanas. So Shankara, according to Shankaracharya's commentaries, upasanas and these vidyas are different ways of ascending the ladder of evolution or spiritual fitness in spiritual life. Now, another very important subject I want to refer to. In the Upanishads we find not only Advaita, but also there are many other teachings. There are some interesting conversations, dialogues, samvadas between different schools of thought, Advaita and Purvapakshis, non-Advaitic schools of philosophy, mostly Purvamimamsakas, Bauddhas and Sankhya's. One should remember, some people, especially those who are, they have no access to traditional learning. In fact, I had to experience, I confront this problem. There are statements in the Mandukika and also in the Upanishad Bhashyas. Dvaitina word is used. So Siddhanta Vivasthasu, Dvaitino Nischidadham, Parasparam Viruddhenti Taiki Ayamna Viruddhenti, comes in the Mandukya Karika, Godavada Karika. It says, Dvaitis are fighting among themselves. But it's Advaita Asmadiyoya Vaidiko Dharma, Evi na Viruddhini. We have no quarrel with them. And Bhashyakara says, you cannot fight with our own head. If you hit your own head with your right hand, you feel the pain. So, this concept of universality, unity and oneness of creation and existence. Whole creation is one spiritual family. So you can't hurt anyone without hurting outside. So the Advaita preached the Upanishads have certain important messages for our time. The word Dvaita is used in the sense of people who make a distinction between the absolute reality and the rest of creation. That is mostly with reference to Sankhya's. So that should be kept in mind. And again, there are some interesting conversations, especially those who read Shankara's commentary, Durga Chandu, we find important dialogues. For example, sannyasa. There is a view, and this is a very, very wrong view, that Upanishads ask all of us to become sannyasis, monks, for spiritual realization. There is a reason why Shankaracharya had to condemn karma in the Upanishad Bhashyas. Without pointing out this, any discussion of the Upanishad will be incomplete. See, the word karma was used even during pre-Bhagavad Gita times. That's why Lord Krishna comes heavily against Mimamsa. Yakshe dasya nimodishe iti ajnana vimohidaha aneka chitta vidhanta. We find Lord Krishna criticizing these Yajnikas and Mimamsakas. And then during the time of Buddha, karma, the idea of karma had run crazy. I mean, people were obsessed with the idea of yajnas and yagas, involving even animal sacrifices. And then Kumarila Bhatta came, he defeated the Bauddhas who opposed Vaidika Dharma. But what happened was, Kumarila Bhatta won the battle for Vedas, but he won the battle not for the Upanishads, but for the Sankhya Brahmana, for the Mimamsakas. So when Kumarila Bhatta wrote Sloka Bhakti and Tantra Bhakti, he was trying to underline the fact that Vedas only teach you to practice karma. Karma means rituals, not lavya karmas. Ritual means husband and wife should together practice a Vedic ritual, uttering mantras, that is Paschima Sharadaswaram, Jivema Sharadaswaram, let us be, may us live for 100 years. This is the prayer. And then we have to practice these rituals, accompanied by their wife, in the presence, in front of fire. Dara means Sakidam Karma. That is the definition of karma according to Kumarila Bhatta. Any karma, which means ritual, which nobody performs these days. So rituals meant, karma meant rituals, rituals meant this kind of Vedic ceremonies practiced by householders, along with husband and wife, just for long life, wealth, progeny and material purpose. Shankaracharya says, this karma is not needed. You don't practice this karma. So whenever Shankaracharya mentions karmas are not needed, remember, yani karmani agnihotralini shastre vidiyandi tani sarvani karmani abhidusho vikhidani. What does it mean? Wherever the Shastras, Vedas recommend, give injunction that you should practice karma, that karma means not doing karma for other people, not social activity, not charity, not philanthropy, not social work, but rather rituals performed for selfish purposes, for long life, wealth and material purpose. That also will be performed by only married people and also in front of fire. Dharani Sagita karma. Shankaracharya says, these karmas you don't need. So any person who wants to practice this karma, whether Brahmacharya, Dushadva, Vanadva, Id Aghareva Viridi, Tad Aghareva Pravati, is mentioned in 3 Upanishads, Narada Parivrajya Upanishad and Paramahamsa Upanishad, Vajrasutya Upanishad. All these Upanishads repeat the same mantra as Shankaracharya says. Remember, Shankaracharya does not recommend sannyasa for everyone. He only says, if you want to take sannyasa, you should have the freedom to do that, whether from Brahmacharya Ashrama, Grihasthashrama, or Vanaprastha. But according to Mimamsakas, whom he was trying to confront and refute, those Mimamsakas told, repeatedly said, sannyasa is meant for old people, too old, cannot move, maybe in the hospice conditions. Maybe those who are blind, deaf, can't speak, can't move. Such people are fit for sannyasa. This is the view of Puravimamsakas. Shankaracharya, you are wrong. So remember, when you talk about Upanishads, when you read the literal statements, when you take the meaning literally, you should remember these Upanishad mantras got a meaning when Shankaracharya wrote a commentary. Because the same Upanishad mantras appear in many of the Samhita portions, which are again commented upon by Yasta. And also in the Vaidika Nikundu before Yasta, they all gave only a very superficial meaning. Aham Brahmasmi Mahavatya, with the highest document the spiritual Advaitic experience. According to Puravimamsakas, it means a person is performing yajna. So Brahma here means Devata, and Asmi means Devata Prapti. Aham means Yajamana. So performing yajna and yaga, you are Aham, the Indra, Vita, Varuna, Agni, they are Devatas. And after performing all this, you go to that heaven and live with these Devas and Devatas and have a happy time. Let's say like why. See, remember, in the Mimamsa tradition, the concept of Swarga is more like a 5-star hotel. Whenever I discuss the point in European countries and also the United States, recently I was in Bahamas for a 10-day retreat. I have to repeat again and again. Please remember, in Abrahamic tradition, especially Christian tradition, heaven has got a spiritual connection with it. Heaven is a place where angels are there, God is living. But in Mimamsa tradition, Swarga is just like 5-star hotel. You do a lot of good things, you enjoy, only you come back. And Shankaracharya says, that is not the highest God in spiritual life. This subject comes tomorrow, but in Upanishad you find a lot of discussions on Advaita and also a lot of ideas which apparently condemn karma, but you remember that karma is not everyday activity. The Upanishads do not tell you that you should not do anything, it only tells you should go beyond the mechanical rituals meant for just material prosperity. So this is a kind of gymnastics what I try to do here. It is such a short time to give a broad view of a very vast subject. It requires several hours of discussion. Anyway, I am grateful to Swami Suddhidanandaji and all the monks, revered monks, senior and junior who are present here for giving this opportunity. to discuss, share some other thoughts. Thank you, Namaskar.